Before Paris became a symbol of culture, art, and power, before its grand boulevards and iconic landmarks, it was something almost invisible, a small settlement on a quiet island in the middle of a river. This is the real story of Paris. Before it became Paris, more than 2,000 years ago, this land looked nothing like it does today. There were no cities, no stone bridges, no monuments, only dense forests, open plains, and the slow, steady flow of the Seine. It was a landscape shaped by nature, not by human ambition. And in this environment, survival was everything. Around the 3rd century BC, a small Celtic tribe known as the Parisii settled along the river. They were not conquerors. They were not rulers. They were people adapting to their environment, fishing, trading, building simple tools. Their world was small, but connected because of one thing. The river, the Seine, was not just a source of water. It was a lifeline. It allowed movement, exchange, communication. Through it, the Parisii traded goods like grain, pottery, and metal tools with nearby tribes. And in a time without roads, this made them part of something larger. At the center of their settlement was a small island. Today, we call it Ile de la Cité. But at the time, it was simply a place of advantage. Surrounded by water, it was easier to defend. It offered visibility, control, and security. The Parisii built wooden houses, simple structures, nothing monumental, no grand design, just what they needed to survive. But history was already moving toward them. In 52 BC, everything changed. The Roman Republic expanded into Gaul. Led by Julius Caesar, Roman forces pushed deeper into the region, and the land of the Parisii was no exception. The conquest was not just military, it was cultural, structural, permanent. The settlement was absorbed into the Roman world and given a new name, Lutetia. Under Roman control, the transformation began. Slowly, but clearly, wood gave way to stone, paths became organized streets, temporary shelters turned into permanent buildings. The settlement began to resemble a Roman town. But Lutetia was never meant to be a major city. It was not Rome. It was not Lyon. It remained modest, functional. Still, Roman influence was visible. Public baths were built, not just for hygiene, but for social life. An amphitheater appeared, a place for gatherings and entertainment. Bridges connected the island to the surrounding land. Movement became easier. Trade became more structured. Daily life changed. Markets became more organized. Crafts became specialized. And for the first time, the settlement operated within a defined system. But even with these changes, Lutetia remained on the edge of importance. It existed within the Roman world, but it did not define it. And then, Rome began to weaken. By the 3rd century AD, the empire faced growing pressure. Economic instability, political conflict, external invasions. The system that had built cities began to break. Lutetia felt this shift. Its population declined. Some areas were abandoned. Buildings were no longer maintained. The structured Roman life faded. The city did not collapse, but it became quieter, smaller, less certain, and for a time, it seemed like it might disappear. But history rarely ends in silence. As Roman authority weakened, new forces emerged. Local power structures began to take shape, and slowly, the settlement adapted. By the early Middle Ages, something changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually. The name Lutetia began to disappear, and a new name took its place, Paris, a name that carried memory, a name that linked the present to the past. To the Parisii, the city remained centered on the island. Ile de la Cité became its core, its heart. In a time of instability, this location mattered. It was easier to defend, easier to control. And once again, the river became essential. Trade returned. Slowly, boats moved along the Seine. Goods were exchanged. Markets began to form. The city was still small, but it was growing. By the 10th century, Paris had become more than a settlement. It was becoming a center. Political power began to concentrate here. The early French monarchy recognized its importance, and over time, Paris became associated with authority, control, influence. It did not happen in a single moment. There was no event that created Paris. It was shaped by geography, by trade, by survival, and by time. Layer by layer, century after century, Paris was built from a small Celtic settlement to a modest Roman town to a growing medieval center. Each phase left something behind. Each generation changed its direction. And today, when we look at Paris, we see something very different. A global city, a cultural symbol, a place of history, art, and identity. But beneath all of that, the foundations remain. The river still flows, the island still stands, and the origins are still there. Paris was not created, it was shaped. And that is what makes its story so powerful